When you incorporate new and different types of technologies that enable new services, you are now advancing that asset and growing its value. How do I integrate all these different systems together and create this seamless, easy way to operate, especially when I may have a staff member who's only here for 9 months? A Wi Fi experience outside of the unit becomes very important to that resident. They see Wi Fi like oxygen, great connectivity, helping with retention in different ways. Technologies built on top of connectivity can help increase that satisfaction and perception of the building. And this ties back to NPS scores if you're a multifamily or apartment owner, if you're a research firm, if you're a retail store. If your network is not strong and enabling what's next, then you won't have the what's next.
Welcome to MDU-Mic, conversations at the intersection of connectivity and community. And now your host, Michael McCourt.
Today, I'm joined by Elizabeth Parks, President and Chief Marketing Officer at Parks Associates. Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Thanks for the invitation to join you, and happy Friday.
Elizabeth, Parks Associates is a market research and consulting company specializing in emerging consumer technology products and services. Today, our conversation will be focused really around multifamily. But before we get there, would you give us an overview of your 40-year-old company and what you do?
Yes, thanks again for the invitation to join. So, as you noted, we are a pretty traditional market research and consulting company, and we are celebrating our 40 years in business this year. Across the past 4 decades, we have been collecting consumer data and insights to be able to understand the growth in different areas of technology in the consumer, small business, and now we're looking at the commercial marketplace as well. So we've had a great partnership with many companies over the years, especially Calix. And, broadband is really the foundation of the connected solutions market, whether we're talking about the residential market, multifamily, SMB, senior living, student housing, or the large commercial building market. So very excited to join the conversation. And in addition to the research work that we do, we also host 6 executive conferences across the year that bring thousands of leaders together across the all of the different ecosystem areas of the coverage area of the conferences. So that's another way that we're working with companies to help elevate and really move the markets forward with our research and insights.
Elizabeth, I had the chance to join the Smart Spaces conference, and I join many conferences every year, and I thought it was absolutely fantastic. The quality of conversation, speakers was amazing, as well as the venues. Could you tell us just a little bit more about those? Are there about six a year that you do?
Yep, 6 executive conferences. Our signature event is Connections, and we'll host the 30th annual conference in May. So we're excited to be back in Santa Clara. We also held our 20th annual Connections Summit at CES. We have our Smart Spaces in person event in September, which is in its fourth year and has a special focus on bringing together the property managers and owners, as well as the various technology players and service providers, as well as some hospitality to understand the growth trajectory and the integration of new technologies. And in the multifamily space, about a third of households in the United States live in that kind of environment. And so, of course, this is a very important area for us to be covering and understanding how residents and even owners of apartments and condos are incorporating new technologies.
When you look across your recent multifamily research, how has the definition of resident experience changed, and where does connectivity sit in that definition today?
Yeah, since the pandemic, it has really changed a lot. We were already on the way before 2020, but that pandemic experience really shifted things and made connectivity as a baseline infrastructure need for the asset that is being held. And I think that's where things have really shifted is these buildings have always been considered large assets, but when you incorporate new and different types of technologies that enable new services, you are now advancing that asset and growing its value. So connectivity is it's a requirement for other things to work really well, and so now we see that as a foundational piece of the infrastructure, whether we're talking certainly in new construction, and but now the retrofit market is enormous, right? There are incredibly large amount of owners and operators to serve and provide upgrades on the network, the services, and then all the amenities that can stem from that foundation.
What do owners, operators maybe still underestimate about connectivity's role inside the community and not just inside the apartment home, but the entire property?
Yeah, we definitely hear from the owner operator groups, and just for reference, we are surveying 300 owner operators in the MDU or multi dwelling unit areas, which of course is including multifamily. And we've done this every other year. We actually have a survey in field right now. We're also surveying the residents who live in the buildings to understand the types of technology they want and what sways their decision when they're choosing a certain property or not. So we definitely think that the Wi Fi experience outside of the unit becomes very important to that resident. They see Wi Fi like oxygen. And these other areas in the properties make a big difference, whether that's just in the entranceways or the gyms, or if you have different meeting rooms that are around as a resident amenity, this becomes something that people are looking for and they are evaluating as part of that move in process and part of the customer journey in making a decision about the property they're going to live in.
About work from home, but co-working spaces with inside the multifamily communities, especially since maybe the pandemic. We're seeing a lot of that across the country, North America. What are your thoughts on those co-working spaces and the importance of them?
Yeah, absolutely. Buildings have really had to transition and create new spaces to accommodate the work at home environment that's there, and so certainly making sure there's no dead spots and really be able to differentiate your property by being able to have that as a bullet point. And if people are work at home, many people are even part-time, some people go in 4 days a week but still work at home 1 day and may want that space. So again, these are areas that are at the top list of the resident journey when they're making decisions about where they're going to move. We also see good and great connectivity helping with retention in different ways, because it also enables the property to improve satisfaction with other services and consideration of other types of amenities that may be able to be rolled out.
I'm going to follow up on that in just a moment. I think it's so important. But my next question is your managed Wi Fi resident demand and preferences work looks at adoption and the drivers of satisfaction and dissatisfaction with bulk internet and Wi Fi. What do you see separates a good experience from a frustrating one for residents?
Well, the things working is the biggest thing. If everything works, you never really hear about what's going on. And when you know that on average, the average household in the United States has 17 connected devices in it. And then when you look at the demographic makeup of apartment dwellers, condo residents, and owners, these people have a lot of devices that they're using. And in particular, we see gaming being a big one. And when you don't have good connectivity, you're not going to have a good experience with the activities that you're doing in your home. So there's a lot to think about of the satisfaction and how smart technologies built on top of connectivity can help increase that satisfaction and perception of the building. And this ties back to NPS scores, which is something that we're tracking very closely at Parks Associates across many of the different areas that we cover.
You've highlighted models in your research such as Wi-Fi instant on, available right away at move-in, property-wide access. How should owner operators think about moving connectivity as a first day experience, but then also that great connectivity as a retention lever? How do you highlight that?
Yeah, I think this day zero connectivity, always on, ready at move in, these are the things that people are looking for and that they expect at this point because of just how the world has changed and how we operate. So having things in place and be able to market your property as one that has instant connectivity is something that we see as a top consideration. More than 50% of apartment residents rank that always that move-in ready internet as a top consideration. We also see that over a third are expecting this Wi-Fi roaming experience. Across the apartment community. So, this outside of the unit experience also becomes very important.
When I look around, visit properties, check out websites, there seems to be a gap with advertising amazing internet experiences on the apartment side of things, dog washing stations, saunas, things like that. But then you don't see much about the great Wi-Fi they're providing. And I'm wondering if you see a gap in how that this is marketed to potential residents and how you retain residents with this. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there's new solutions that are coming to market that help to grade the Wi Fi and the connectivity piece of the property and owner management and, things that are able to be recognized like a gold star and standard for connectivity. And there are companies that are doing that. I just talked to one the other day, Rover, where they're giving ongoing every 20 minutes they're checking things on the whole internet and all the access points and they're able to provide the building or buildings if they've got a huge portfolio of where how the connectivity is and then be able to create a rating off of that. So I think we're going to see more and more of that as owners and operators recognize that connectivity is becoming a standard. And then what do you want to be? You want to be the gold standard. And how did we position ourselves that way? Also, using outside service providers and managed networks that are able to identify, that somehow they're creating a superior experience because of the technology deployments. That's what a resident or a consumer would want to see. So I think we're going to see these rating systems come out and companies be willing to say, hey, here's my network, tell me how it's doing and where are the problems. And that also leads to fixing and other opportunities for upgrades of the network. And it's pretty complicated when you think about the retrofit market and where these problems might show up. What's the wiring, what's the network look like. There's a lot actually to take a look at when you're thinking about upgrading and also keeping a reliable network. And certainly, there's various companies, but a company like Calix as well would is that managed network and helps provide the insights to understand that experience that could then get with an independent view could get placed on the building as a mark of gold star standard or something like that.
And do you find that when potential residents are looking, I think these days they've done the research on AI, Google reviews, things of that nature. Is the managed Wi-Fi coming up in their search? Are they thinking about the internet connectivity, or are they just looking at other things and then they show up and it doesn't work and then it's just a nightmare for them?
Yeah, I think, as far as understanding managed experience and trying to sell somebody a managed experience, I don't think that's what people connect to. It's really what are the applications that are coming forth from the managed experience? Is there parental control? Do I have extra cyber security? Can I turn my internet off for this device or that? Can I see a new device on the network? These are the kinds of applications that consumers would think about that they may not think about the managed Wi-Fi, but they think about, oh, I have an 8-year old and I don't want them on the internet on certain content, and I can do something through my phone because it allows me to do that. That's what they connect with. So we're seeing a incredibly large amount of new applications coming to market and being enabled because of that managed experience, and then that enables those service providers to create all sorts of new value for their customer, which they have to do because speeds are getting commoditized. Everybody can get a gig, kind of. We're in that world where it will be everybody can get a gig. So, what's beyond the speed of broadband when you have price points that are so low? And that's going to be serving that customer with new value through technologies.
And do you think that family experience, protecting children, things of that nature, has become more of an important issue given the fact that so many people are staying so much longer in multifamily communities?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There's a lot of things driving the what I would call a good reasons to have managed networks on the multifamily side and single family side. So we do show that 50% of apartment renters are over age 45, and 60% are living with at least another person. 25% of apartment residents work remotely. So there's a certain demographic there. As far as children and protections, it is astounding how many predators can access our children through their devices. And I just saw in the news a young man, young boy, 14, 15 years old, who was on Roblox and took a train to New York City and met somebody, and his mom can't find him. And so we're going to see steeper protections coming forth. And there's also just been, lawsuits against social media companies because of the algorithms that are creating addictions in the background. So there's a whole box of worms, and reasons why we should all be looking to protect our children, and young adults, not just kids, like under 18. Probably the adults need the protections too. You hear about these phishing things with anybody who is believing what they're being told. So it's a scary world out there, and I think definitely think that managed services are going to help in that area as well.
And to your point about senior communities, I had a previous guest who mentioned if you don't think seniors are using technology, you're gravely mistaken. With the amount of iPads in common areas, FaceTiming, doctor visits, it's really on the rise and very susceptible to those kind of attacks.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are doing a lot of research in the assisted care technology, but just also the wearables and understanding the different demographics that are using devices to track their health and wellness. We're also doing research with senior living owners and operators. And also senior communities, even 55 and up or 65 and up communities that people are living independently but have services and aggregated experiences through community apps. So these all of these things are getting built, and everybody needs to be protected. So it's I think that's a very important point.
Elizabeth, you mentioned this a bit earlier, but your research has pointed out that apartment residents can have different usage patterns, gaming, streaming. How should properties and providers design networks that reflect what residents do in their apartment home and best prepare for future uses?
Yeah, it's tricky because people are utilizing so many different devices in the home, and depending on the makeup of the household, you see a lot of variance and bandwidth and what's necessary. But we are in a world that's moving towards streaming services. 91% of all households now are using streaming services. We're seeing the decline of broadcast TV, but really, in fact, usage of both. And we're going to see that continue. So when you have five people in a household and three teenagers, and two of them are gaming and on their phone, and another kid on the computer and on the phone. And you might be having to work and do a Zoom call or a Teams meeting. This is a lot of bandwidth, and so making sure that that network is strong, is being tested, the access points, right, and then that ability to really understand where's the faulting happen so that it can be corrected. But the network is so critical for the experience now. And when Wi-Fi doesn't work, they're going to be calling and asking you to help them, fix it.
It's one of those things where if it's working, you aren't going to hear about it. But the minute it's not, there's a serious, serious problem. And usually they go down to the office immediately.
Yes, absolutely.
Elizabeth, your IoT automation research in multifamily notes pressures from staffing shortages, need to reduce manual labor costs, and risks like water leaks. What are the most compelling operational use cases you are seeing today in that IoT automation space and in multifamily for both the residents but also the owners, operators?
Yeah, so the staffing shortage in the multifamily is real, and even more real is the turnover in the front office. And so, operationally, when you consider that properties might be on average looking at anywhere from 16 to 24 different, or I'm sorry, 16 to 21 different software programs being utilized, it becomes a really complicated environment for an individual to operate under. So what we're seeing is a lot of property owners trying to figure out, how do I integrate all these different systems together and create this seamless, easy way to operate, especially when I may have a staff member who's only here for 9 months and then they move on. Right. So there's this constant training need. We also, I think the biggest thing was making sure people could come and view properties without anybody there, right? So that ability to access the property, that means you're talking about smart locks and access control, and that person can come in, or a remote touring, right? So, oh, I don't even have to go to the building. I'm going to go go online and be able to view the property, right? That those became very important with the pandemic. Once we've gotten into this new world, it's, oh, can somebody go in and look at it on their own? Because that's how they may want to view the property, and I may not have somebody to show it. So this is a good way to do that. So the access control side is a really, really big one. And then, as you noted, there are things like water leaks, and fire is also another really big area that people are always looking at because of the potential damage and the claims that come along with leaks and fires. Of course, fire is highly regulated, and properties have lots of rules they have to follow there. But water leak detection is in the very, very early stages. We're only showing about 4% of households in the United States who have some kind of water leak detection. So it's still very new. It can fix catastrophic damage before it happens. There's very big insurance implications here when we think about this. The other area that we see beyond the water and fire and access control is now security and safety with cameras. This is different than just access control. This is the monitoring, this is safety, and making sure somebody feels safe in the environment that they're living in. And then the other really, really big one is energy and energy management, because we know these buildings and all the people in them are using energy, and how do we reduce energy consumption? There's a lot of good reasons why an operator owner would want to be doing that, and there's going to be a lot of incentives when we think about the utility play and this idea of VPPs, or virtual power plants. All of this, again, is built off of the foundation of connectivity. So it all has to be working well for these new and future growing areas to really come to fruition.
The staff in the front office and the maintenance team are some of the most critical, important pieces to resident leasing and retention of residents, maintenance especially. How do we use the technology to help those stressed out team members on the front lines? As you said, turnover is an issue on both the maintenance and the leasing side. How do we use that to help the industry?
Well, there's these managed networks would also support different software solutions that would sit on top of e- ecosystem areas of the buildings. And then you get these analytics that become proactive and preventative to understand what's going on. The more data that you're able to collect and understand how's the HVAC working, you got a blip here or there. This is what connectivity in the background is doing, and for the even the manufacturers of the hardware, right? All these different products are now connected, and you've got data that goes back to better understand how that uh, system is operating. And then when you add the apps and the logins and you get to see, and now it sends you an alert, this system might fail before it fails, right? There's resident satisfaction, but now you're saving money, right? Because you don't have a failing system. You fixed, so this preventative, proactive prevention is coming, and that is really a lot of what this AI software can do. And so we see that it's complicated though, because you got to put layers of software on top of hardware or other software, right? And then you got a lot of system integration going on. So it's not easy, and there's a lot of players there's a lot of software solutions in the market, and so I think there's a little confusion and just a flood of offerings in the market. So it'll take some time, and we're talking about buildings. These are big decisions to make that could be long term decision making, which is also hard when you have new AI coming out, every 30 days or whatever the pace is. It's incredible.
Many of us thought the uncertainty tied to bulk internet and the FCC was behind us, but with recent legislation in California and Colorado seems to be back on the radar. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the kind of flip-flopping around on regulations and requirements is going to be hard for any businesses to navigate. So it doesn't help the industry, and sometimes decision makers may not understand all the different implications of what is being decided if they're not, they may not have the full scope, and so it's hard to say what all is going to become of these the opting out of bulk and how that impacts the owners and operators when bulk could be giving some good rates for the building. And so there's different views on this, and different states have uh, different regulations and policies. The bead money is also another area that's really hard for service providers because things keep changing, the requirements are changing. So when that happens, what do? You have to wait.
Do you think some of this has been brought about by the publicity of how well maybe things are working from an owner operator perspective and on the bulk side of things, and maybe that those regulators don't know that it's providing a um, not a cheaper experience, but on average, a resident would be paying less than if they were going retail and all the benefits that come with a bulk managed Wi-Fi solution that we've just been talking about. How do you think this is kicked off again?
Well, this will just be my general view here, but I'm not sure that the FCC has some of the correct data that could help them in aiding the decision. And as you know, we are a research firm, and so we are tracking all sorts of information about speeds and availability of broadband in the US market. And that data really helps understand the different decisions that go into it. And so sometimes there's a lot of data out there that gets collected, and how that is explained may vary how people make decisions, of course. So, I would love the FCC to look at Parks Associates research and provide them some insight if there's any interest there.
Elizabeth, what are some of the challenges that vendors face in the multifamily space actually finding the multifamily owner? And where should they go? Is it OpTech, RecCon, smart spaces that you throw? How do we find the right person or people?
Yeah, I think that's a real challenge for a lot of the technology companies who are trying to sell to the owners and operators. One, it's finding the right person. Who am I selling to? Is it the individual owner? Do they have a portfolio of properties and have some kind of chief information officer or technology officer. We see that title emerging right now, and that may be a new staff member as companies recognize the importance of technology. But as you said, we know a lot of the technology players who go to many events and come back and say the event was great, the content was great, but where are the owners and operators? Where do they go? And so, really, we think that what has to happen is continued education in the market and looking to see where are these individuals and where do their companies, where are they paying attention. I've heard some people say, oh, they're out on the golf course, and maybe they are in some instances, but they are busy with maintaining their rents and paying their bills, and they may not be actively seeking technology right now. There's a lot that goes on in the macro sense in terms of rents and debts and all the things that are going on with properties, particularly since the pandemic. And that shift has still impacted this market incredibly over the past 5 years, and the dynamics still make it where the focus for an owner operator may not be on, oh, I need to upgrade my network, right? Because that means they have to invest and spend money, and they have to figure out, what do I need? So we really highly recommend for any companies that are looking to work with these groups to work on your content marketing, to give explanations of what are we talking about when you mean network management or a managed network. What does that mean? Explain the applications, explain the almost 20% operational savings that can happen. Explain that, the new technologies could help retain their staff, which saves them money, right? And that advanced technologies that consumers expect in unit is what will help them differentiate and allow them to charge more, right? So, but that's where we also step in. We want to help elevate and grow the industry through reliable research and data and insights, and so even activities like these we think are really important to have people understand where's the opportunity for growth and retention.
Elizabeth, when it comes to infrastructure and new builds, there's a lot to think about, a lot of options. How should owner operators be looking in terms of the future, whether that's fiber to the unit, maybe going with Wi Fi 7 now versus Wi Fi 6, even though the residents today might not have devices that are going to utilize that? How should owner operators be looking not too future proof, as that's impossible, but thinking future forward or what things will look like down the road?
Yeah, these advanced Wi-Fi technologies are going to continue to come into the market, and the new Wi-Fi standards will enter way before some of the devices can catch up. So we do think that adding the most advanced infrastructure you possibly can at the time is probably your best bet when you're thinking long term. And when you're talking about new construction, that's a long term. Any multifamily is a long term hold. So all of these things are again investments, and that asset, it, it changes value depending on what you're adding into it. So, we would recommend to put in the most advanced technologies that you can afford to when considering, future perspectives of success.
If you could give one piece of advice to multifamily owners, operators in the industry about connected communities and creating amazing connected environments, what would that be?
I mean, the investment is necessary, and if you aren't investing in the network and connectivity piece, pretty much no matter what business you are, if you're a multifamily or apartment owner, if you're a research firm, if you're a retail store, if your network is not strong and enabling what's next, then you won't have the what's next. And so we strongly feel that owners and operators need to evaluate and assess their sort of future proofing by understanding how their network is running, what's the experience like, what does a managed network look like, how can I create new value for how I operate and also how I get people in the door and retain them as a resident.
What's the best way to learn more about parks and get in contact with you?
Well, of course, our website, we have a robust website and we love to share research. So it's parksassociates.com. Also, we're on LinkedIn a lot. We have different newsletters we share on LinkedIn through the Parks Associates account and also through my LinkedIn profile. So I'd invite anybody to follow us on LinkedIn or connect with me if you're interested.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for your time today. We continue to take advantage of your amazing research here at Calix. Thank you again.
Thanks for the invitation. I really appreciate it.